today, of course, we have a very special guest, a friend. He is also a pillar for Headstart as well, right? We have Mittu Tigi, who recently took the helm at AIC-IIITKottayam. And an interesting thing was that recently AIC-IIITKottayam earned the title of Emerging Incubator, right, in that Niti Aayog's assessment framework. So, amazing to have you here, Mittu, about all the amazing things that is doing up at the AIC-IIITKottayam and how we are, going to take things forward. So, with that, over to you for some opening remarks. If you can share the journey of, AIC-IIITKottayam so far, and also highlight on the amazing things that led to you getting the title of emerging incubator, right? That'll be a good start. Please, over to you.
Sure. So AIC-IIITKottayam is at a very interesting location because it's not at one of your metros or your tier 2 cities. I would say we are based out of Kottayam, and Kottayam is probably a tier 3 city, and the positioning of the incubator as a physical location is quite interesting because this place has predominantly been known for agriculture, entrepreneurs, or there is business in the ecosystem because there's a large production of rubber and cardamom and all these places in the district, but it's predominantly very traditional in forms of business approach. So to have an Atal incubation center, and so when it started off in 2018, this is probably one of the first AICs in Kerala, and it's going to be about 5 years in a month or two since the operation started. So it's a wonderful journey. We have been able to support more than 50 startups directly through incubation programs over here. And since we have got the Startup India Seed Fund scheme a year back, we have invested close to 100 lakhs in startups as funds right now, and there's another 100 lakhs that we are going to disperse in the next probably 6 to 8 months also. So that's some in terms of funding. So it has been quite nice because that we have been able to bring this over here compared to a Kochi or a Trivandrum or a Calicut. I'm talking very specifically from state of Kerala's perspective, where these are the three major cities. So Kottayam is sitting somewhere in between, and being present there shows the dedication of the institute to bring entrepreneurship to even the remotest parts from a business perspective. Otherwise, it's a very well-connected place, but from a business perspective, it's not a very highly startup enthusiastic city. But that is the purpose of the incubator over here.
Super. Yeah. Thanks so much for that. Actually, amazing to know all the resources that are at our disposal to make amazing things happen, right? So just to kind of take a step forward, right? So of course now that we are in the process of building all the relevant resources and all the relevant equipments to enable AIC-IIITKottayam to of course impact in a larger capacity, and as well as, of course, climb the next level, right? So, what are the top 3 things that you are focusing on, which you would want to secure for the incubator, and other stakeholders in the startup ecosystem can help you in this?
Yes, so very very interesting question, and this is something that we have also been working. So I joined here very recently, so I have also been trying to change various things over here. And the first thing we had looked at is who are the people who can that we can support in terms of categories of people, I would say. So definitely being in a college, IIIT is an institute of national importance, and the students who come here are quite quite the creamy layer of students, and they come from across India. So we have, from a demography perspective, we have just 7 to 10% students from Kerala, but almost 90% of students are from outside Kerala. So we have that vast demography of people here, and so the first focus area or the focus sector would be students itself, right? So how can the programs of incubator support the students in materializing their ideas into the next level, and can we take them to market, can we get them IP support and all these things. So that's the first focus area that we have to support the students. So from when I say students, there's also another sector of students who are interested to work with startups. So like we already have about some students who work with the incubated startups over here as interns, because this is an institute focused on IT subjects like cybersecurity, data science, AI. We have BTech in AI, BTech in data science, BTech in cybersecurity. So very specialized on these subjects. So the students are also very expertised on these matters. So when some of the startups that we have, one of the startups that we have who works specifically in the IoT domain, they have 5 interns working from AIC, from the IIIT Institute with the startup here. So these kind of internships are also something that we want to push forward. So we are trying to create a repository of interns from the college who can work with startups, both incubated in IIIT in the incubator, also not even incubated, also could look at those interns. So that's where I look at the students on one side. Then the second category that I look is for the startups. So this is where all the this is the core area of an incubator also, and especially an AIC looks at startups very focused. So we want to support startups in terms of funding, in terms of mentorship, and also we want to design programs for various stages of startups. So our main innovation incubation program would focus on taking idea or a prototype stage startup to a market stage. And this is a slightly lengthier program, mostly a 12-month program. While we also want to look at micro accelerator programs. So these are meant for startups who are probably in the early stages of revenue, but this will be very sector specific, very focused on one single sector, like probably agri-tech or probably health tech, and that has some components of IoT, because IoT is a core segment of the core strength of the college also. So these sectors will look, these programs will look at helping startups in these sectors go to the next level, maybe in terms of customers, maybe in acquiring some corporate clients and all these things. But it will be a shorter duration programs, but very focused on this particular sector. So these are some things that we have for the startups. Of course, like every incubator AIC out there, you have your funding schemes like Startup India Seed Fund, Nidhi SSS. We've recently applied for a couple of these new programs that we can support startups in terms of funding. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we are looking at dispersing about 5 to 10 CR in terms of funding to startups across various domains. That will definitely happen, as part of the ongoing process that normally happens. Now the third segment, which normally a metro or a tier 2 city generally don't focus on, is the local preneurs. So these are mostly your MSMEs. So one of the core segments that we want to try out is, can we take these MSMEs to a startup model? Can we like convert or support them in changing their business model from very focused on a cash capital intensive MSME model to a very lean startup model of growth, while at the same time taking the benefits of hyper growth and all these scalability, replicability, and all these things that's very predominantly seen in the startup. And because that's a larger segment of local entrepreneurs that I see in and around Kottayam. If I take a 50-kilometer radius, that's the sort of entrepreneurs I mostly see around here. And being a mostly estate town, so a lot of agri, a lot of health, these are the segments that I see. So that's where we want to support startups in the next stage. Or I would expand that to MSMEs also to some extent.
Yeah, very interesting point, right? The other day, we had the CEO of NDBI, National Design Business Incubator. So he also made a similar, point where that's when it struck me that, see, if you take India, right, so many sort of families and communities, they have this sort of generational skill sets, right? Like for example, recently I was in, I went to Kanyakumari. A village near Kanyakumari, there was this tribe which made, tools, locks, and keys out of seashells, right? So this, of course, there are so many innovations and design thinking happening at that level, which is not, which perhaps been overlooked by us, in the startup ecosystem, and they also don't get the exposure and the market access that a typical startup gets, right? A typical startup founder has. So incubators focusing on these things are, it's a great thing, and like you rightly mentioned, nurturing this sort of startup culture within these MSME, founders and communities, right? That can actually put a dent in the economy, actually, right? Like so, interesting point. So, and of course, I was just about to ask you about the programs, but we have covered it now. So let me move ahead, right, over here. So, okay. So just to pick up from the programs, let's talk about the impact that you would like to create, right? So imagine yourself to be like, you're the CEO of AIC-IIITKottayam till 2025, God willing, and you're looking back. So what are all the, specific impacts that you think you would have created, if you would like to be prophetic for a minute?
So, if I would like to put some numbers around that,
Yes,
which you can
please.
see some picture.
Yes.
So, I would say for our idea stage startups, for the programs
Mm-hmm.
that we are supporting to the idea stage startups, where we are getting them to the market, I would put that in the next 3 years we are able to support somewhere around 100 to 120 startups. In the next 3 years, by 2025, that's what I think we can do. So you could say like 100 ideas getting to market is a vision that we want to look at in the next 2 to 3 years. The second thing I mentioned was one of the programs where we are focusing on like a micro accelerator programs for very specific startups. So here we want to support because, as I said, this is Kottayam as a district is mostly a agri or it has been an agrarian economy for a long time, and there's a lot of money in the estates and the things that you see in the hilly areas. So from that perspective, I think agri startups or agri tech is something that we want to support very aggressively for the next 2 to 3 years. So hopefully we need to support 40 to 50 ideas in agri specifically.
Okay.
And that will be a big boost to the economy around Kottayam, and also for the state as such also to come out with some very interesting products around agri. Now, other thing that when I look at the state as a whole, so as I said, there are very few AICs in Kerala right now. Actually, this is one of the oldest functioning. And I think we have Amrita is an established incubation center. We have two more AICs allocated for this year, but they're just starting their operations as AICs. So from that perspective, if I look at the state entirely, health is something that Kerala as a state has always been focused on. And you've heard stories all across during the COVID and other things. And there are a lot of good hospitals. There are a lot of good research institutes across the state, like SCT is a good college in Trivandrum. There's multiple bioparks coming up, and the government itself is supporting on a lot of different programs. And nationally also, health is a very core segment in terms of startups and advancing. So that's the second segment I want to focus on. And here also we are trying to look at about 30 to 40 startups that we can support. So this could be around medical devices, this could be around med tech, or this could be about life sciences startups. This could also be digital technology startups in the healthcare space altogether. But we want to support these startups through a micro accelerator program. So hopefully it could be connected to revenues, it could be connected to investments raised, etc. So that's the numbers in terms of supporting startups. Now, if I look at footprints, so as I said, most of the startups might not find business in and outside Kottayam. There might be knowledge, research, and other things at IIIT, but business might not be very proximity, might not be there for the business side of things. So in that sense, we are also looking at expanding satellite centers for IIIT Kottayam. So this first thing we would do would be a Kochi, because that's a nearest
Yeah,
city, town, and
correct.
also a startup hub with a lot of organizations and a lot of good incubators. Startup Mission has Kerala Startup Mission has a big space over there. So a lot of startup activity going around Kochi. So definitely the first stop would be Kochi. And next would be a Bangalore, and definitely a Chennai, because these are some centers that we want to look at. So where we would look at maybe a 10 seat or a 20 seat small space.
Yeah.
So because we already have startups from Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, who are
Mm.
already situated here, but they're going through virtual programs mostly. So we also want to give them the benefit of working together and learning from a peer-to-peer nature. And it might be very difficult for a Bangalore startup to ask them to come down to a Kottayam, because the business will be much better for them in a Bangalore. So we are thinking, can we build the strategies, programs, and systems here, and also take it to these kind of satellite centers where the startups can use any of the centers. Maybe 3 years down the line, they can, if they're having a meeting in Bangalore, they can use one of the seats there, and if they have a meeting in Chennai next month, they can use the Chennai center, and if they want to come to Kochi, they can do that also. So depending upon where they are and as they're traveling, or as they want to use this particular space, they can also use that network of co-working spaces for their growth around that. So that could be another visualization I can paint a picture around.
Super, super. Yeah, please. If you had one more thought.
But predominantly the focus would be supporting about 200 startups in the next 3 years through various programs.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, of course, hope Headstart can be a part of that journey, right? So now we have 2-3 minutes. Let's focus on the startup side, right? So one is, yesterday, I was talking to Dr. Kumar from AIC-IIITKottayam University. So we were talking about the selection process of startups, right? Each incubator, of course, each investment firms have their own thesis. Each incubator have their own sort of selection criteria, selection methodology, right? To sort of pick the best startups. And also, of course, incubator startups are pretty early stage. It's a bit hard to determine whether that idea is outright crazy, or it is, with a good intervention, it can turn out to be brilliant, right? So what is your thought on this?
So, see, that's on one side, it is see, we are a not-for-profit organization at the end of the day, like most incubators. And it is just like any not-for-profit, it's focused on creating impact. And so we can't be very choosy in various things. But of course, if you're driving a program, and if the program is a cohort-based program, then there has to be some selection criteria or some selection rubrics that you need to follow, so that everybody gets the right amount of benefit out of the program. Like you can't put like if you have an incubation program, and you can't be like one person is in a prototype stage and one person is already making revenues, because various sessions or various mentors that you would bring for the program, various activities that you would do would sometimes be very beneficial to the person in the prototype stage, but it would be a waste of time for the person in the revenue stage, right? So so selection from that perspective has to be properly managed. And this would depend on the outcome that you want to come out of that program. So if the outcome of the program is to get 80% of the startups in the program to the market, like internally, that's what we decide. Then you have to select startups who are in an idea or a prototype stage, right? You can't take a startup in a revenue-based stage, right? So then the next thing that you also can look at is the sectors. Like it can't be too wide. I mean, it won't work out that way. So you might have to fix on a few sectors, because otherwise then you'll have to get mentors across the board. What a legal tech startup would need and a health tech startup would need is completely different. So it might be impossible to give the attention and time for all that. So you might have to pick either one sector, or you might have to pick maybe a few sectors, 2 or 3, but which has some sort of overlap, right? So like, for example, our focus area is IoT devices or IoT technology on the top, but then in IoT, we also look at health tech, we also look at agri, those kind of things, where there's a component of hardware, IoT, cloud technologies, and all these combined together, or digital technologies on top of it. So these are somewhere there's some sort of an overlap. So it gets easier for us to get the right mentors and right connections and the right corporate that we can connect them with and all that. So as a somebody running an incubator, my focus is first on the outcome, and then I try to work backwards on
Okay.
to meet that outcome. What should I do? If I okay, now if it's an accelerator program and the purpose of the program is to get them to increase their revenue by 3x in the next 6 months, then my focus should be about growth, marketing, bettering their product, connecting them with corporates or customers, whoever is if it's a B2C or B2B, depending upon that. There is no point in doing something else other than that, if that's the outcome that you want to showcase. So I first look at the outcome, and then I try to do the backward planning, where I say, okay, this is, if to this achieve this outcome, then we need to do these things, and then if I need to start from here, then these are the startups that should come into the funnel. So my pipeline of the startups is connected to my outcome also in one way.
Yeah, makes sense actually. So
crazy. From that perspective, there are crazy ideas, of course. You need to take some risk on those crazy ideas.
Correct.
You have to believe that the process and the system that you have set in terms of the program would help those crazy ideas also come out into the market and scale up from there.
Yeah. And also, this outcome-based approach can, you can average it out, right? Like, so for example, either the idea is going to excel the outcome that you are expecting, or it is going to fall short. But if you have that sort of if you average it, then of course there will be a leeway to, play with the risky ideas actually. So
correct.
Makes sense. Super. So yeah, we are kind of out of time. So I think let's send this, on giving the right coordinates to the startups and the stakeholders, right? So first, startups, if you can guide them on how they can reach out to AIC-IIITKottayam, that'll be great. And what are all the stakeholders that you're trying to connect, and if you can give an invite to them, that'll also be super.
So the best thing that you can always do is go to the website. That's one way to do it. The other is you can always reach out to on our social media channels like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all these places. Or you can always find me on LinkedIn. You can pick me up on LinkedIn. I can also help you out. I'm always accessible over there. So these are all the ways that you can reach out. The phone number is there on the website. You can pick up the phone and call us. That also works in terms of startups. For stakeholders, what we are trying to do is, so as I said, one of the main incubation programs is for an idea to market stage startups. So we are looking at mentors. We are looking at mentors who can support these startups. So it could be mentors from the legal and compliance side. It could be mentors from leadership and HR side, because these are very early stage startups and might not have a lot of skills in leadership. So we need some sort of mentorship around that. We're also looking at product based mentors who can guide them on having a clear product roadmap, and they don't over engineer products and all that. So you can look at the entire segment of a very early stage startup, wherever they need marketing, growth, all of that. So those kind of mentors is what we are looking to build in the next few months as the program. The latest cohort is just going to start in 2 months. So we are looking to build that mentorship panel on one side. Then we are also looking at connecting with corporates who can support these startups. So that would come a little later, because as we finalize on the cohort and we understand what sort of startups we have in that cohort, we would, based on who the target segment of that startup would be, that's where we would love to build relationship with these corporates, and then connect them with the startups as time permits. So yeah, that's we are happy to connect with everyone. We also connect with other incubators for that matter. We are exploring some co-incubation programs. Just yesterday we had a discussion with a Munich incubator in Germany. So we are trying to do a co-incubation program for startups with AIIIT and a Munich incubator. So that sort of things also can be done for startups. So we're looking. So see, I have I share the Headstart dogma to some extent. So I believe collaboration is the best way to go forward. So we collaborate with everyone
Absolutely.
here.
Absolutely. Super note to, end the session on, Mittu. Thank you so much for taking your time to do this.